Okay guys, good morning. Today we are going to be taking our notes on the excretory system. So the excretory system is going to involve several parts that we've talked about with other systems, because the main job of the excretory system is removal of wastes, right? It removes things that the body doesn't need. This is where we get the word excrete, right? Or excretion, right? It removes or excretes unneeded things from the body. And it's lots of different materials. It can be liquids, it can be solids, it can be gases. And so we're going to talk about all of those waste products that it rids the body of. So the main job of the excretory system is to rid the body of waste. Okay, so we're going to add that in at the top. Okay. Now, we're going to start with the lungs. And I'm going to use purple for the lungs, just so we can kind of keep our thoughts straight. The lungs are the main organ of what system? The respiratory system. And they function in the excretory system by removing, remember we're removing things when we talk about the excretory system. What do they remove? They remove carbon dioxide from the body by doing what? We breathe out, or we exhale. And we inhale what gas that we need? Oxygen. Okay? So we're going to come over here and you can box in with purple the lungs. They do that very important job of getting rid of that waste product carbon dioxide. They excrete carbon dioxide from our body into the outside world because we don't need it. We don't need carbon dioxide for any of the processes that our body needs to go through. And so remember, we've got two lungs, major organ of our respiratory system. And so with the excretory system, you're going to really see how it interacts with a lot of different systems, which is important for our body because we can't carry on alone with one system. We need several systems to help us. Okay. All right. Now let's go to talk about the liver. Now we talked about the liver when we talked about the digestive system, right? And I mentioned that it is kind of like a filter. So let's be a little bit more specific on how it gets rid of a type of waste from our body. So I'm going to use brown for the liver, just like we did when we talked about the digestive system. The liver functions in other body systems like the digestive system. Its function in the excretory system, so this is how it gets rid of waste, is to break down toxic waste in the body, right, in our bloodstream, because all of the blood from our digestive system, before it gets used by our body cells, goes through the liver. And so this filters the toxic waste that's in our blood from different foods, because we know that certain foods are not good for us, right? They have things in them that are bad for us. There are substances that are not good for us, like alcohol and certain types of drugs, right? Even drugs that are good for you, right, help your body do things, are sometimes in a form that's toxic. And so the liver takes that, pulls it out of the bloodstream so that it's not affecting any of your body systems, and sends it through the bloodstream to the liver, and the liver turns it into urea. And this urea is a non-toxic compound that's safe to transport in the blood to our kidneys. Okay, so we filter out toxins in our liver, we pull it out of the bloodstream, your liver turns it into urea, which is a liquid that is not toxic. It kind of breaks down those toxic parts and filters it out, and then sends it to the kidneys, and the kidneys have a different job. So we're going to use brown, and we're going to box in our liver box with brown. The liver is just such a cool organ because it really does a lot of jobs to protect us from things that we take into our bodies that might not be really good for us. And then we're going to take and we're going to color our liver here in brown as well. Now you see your gallbladder, remember when we talked about the digestive system, our gallbladder makes bile, but is that going to be part of the excretory system? No, that's part of the digestive system. This part is the liver, the filtering and breaking down and pulling out, remember, removing things. It's removing toxins and making urea, which is going to go to your kidneys. So we're going to talk about the kidneys. And the kidneys are actually the main organ of the excretory system. And we're going to use red to talk about the kidneys. The kidneys are two kind of bean-shaped organs right here. You see them in the diagram right here on either side. And everybody, well, most people have two kidneys. You can live without one. You can donate one kidney. Or some people have to have one removed for kidney stones or something else, right? But these two organs are what help filter your blood further, right? So we pulled out the toxic stuff in the liver, and then we sent what's left over in a non-toxic form, and we're sending it to the kidneys, right? These kidneys are located on either side of your spine. Remember, that's your backbone. And kidneys filter out any waste, any water from the blood through a series of special tubes and capillaries, because remember, how's all of that stuff getting to the kidneys? It's getting there through the bloodstream, and that's through those capillaries. And these tubes and capillaries, when they work together, make a specialized part of the kidney called nephrons. And nephrons are basically like a network of these tubes and capillaries that allow for the exchange of waste. So they allow the waste to go from that bloodstream into the kidneys, and once it gets into the kidneys, that liquid waste is called urine. That's a word you guys probably know, right? That's something that is a waste product for our body, right? We have to get rid of it. Once that liquid waste gets pulled from those blood vessels and into our kidneys, it goes through these two little tubes called ureters, because they carry urine, to the bladder. And the bladder is where that urine is stored until it's full, and it sends a signal to your brain saying, I need to go urinate, I need to go tinkle, right? So we're going to do a couple of things here because I want you to know these two different parts. So let's do our kidneys in red, okay? And you can see in this diagram what we talked about last week, our adrenal glands. You can see that they're sitting right on top of our kidneys on either side. Remember, those are glands that produce our fight or flight response. Okay, so we've got our kidneys, and now we're going to go and we're going to shade our bladder with blue. So I'm going to make a blue box around the bladder so we remember which part it is, and then we're going to make the bladder here blue so that we can identify it in our diagram. Okay, and that's that storage area. And then we're going to do the same thing with our ureters. We're going to turn them yellow in our diagram so that we can remember what they are. So they're just these skinny little tubes that take that urine from the kidneys to the bladder to be stored, right? Now you can box in your kidney box with red, and you can shade your box as well if you like. And so the kidneys are really a very important part of our excretory system. They actually control a lot of our blood pressure as well, because of how much waste and water gets pulled out of our bloodstream affects the blood pressure in our veins, and too high of a blood pressure can be bad for our bodies. Remember, we want that homeostasis, that body balance. All right, we're going to skip over here to the large intestine. Now, we all remember talking about the large intestine, and we remember our digestive lab where we made some poo, right? The large intestine, I'm going to use green for here. It's an organ of our digestive system. And it functions in the excretory system, right? So it's going to remove something. It removes solid waste, right? And if you remember from our lab, we made that solid waste, right? And so that large intestine, all of this area here that goes up and over and around, we can kind of shade in as green. Because the large intestine, remember, all that goes into the large intestine is waste, because the small intestine is what pulls out nutrients that we need. The large intestine just pulls out water, and its job is to get that solid waste out of our body because we don't need it anymore, right? So you can shade in your box green for your large intestine. Remember, every part of the excretory system has a job of removing something from the body, because that's the main goal of the excretory system, is to get the things we don't need out of our body so that they can't harm us, right? The last one, I'm going to use orange for this one. This is our skin, and I know it's hard to think of your skin as getting rid of waste, but it does, right? If you think about when we talked about the integumentary system, we talked about a couple of different types of glands, and one of those glands is responsible for getting rid of salts especially. And I'm sure you can know by this time that it's your sweat glands. So let's fill in our box. The skin functions in the excretory system by eliminating, what does eliminating mean? That means getting rid of, right? Getting rid of extra water and salt. What gland is that? What gland do we eliminate water and salt through? That's going to be our sweat glands, right? So those sweat glands all over your body that maybe when you work out or have to run in PE or athletics, you get all sweaty, and if you ever get sweat in your mouth, you notice that it tastes a little salty. And that's because there's certain salts that our body has a hard time getting rid of. And so it does that through our sweat glands. It pushes that salt into our sweat glands, and our sweat glands are able to push that out of our body and get rid of it. So in order to show that, I'm going to take a light orange and I'm going to just shade all over my little diagram here, because you have those sweat glands everywhere, right? And these aren't glands that produce hormones like when we talked about the endocrine system, right? These are glands that produce and excrete waste products, waste water and waste salt. And that's why our sweat tastes salty. So I hope that kind of seeing these shows you how much these systems in our body interact to help us get rid of the things that we don't need, because there are a lot of waste products produced through the processes that our body goes through, right? Cellular respiration is going to constantly produce that carbon dioxide as a byproduct, that water as a byproduct. And so using the excretory system to get rid of those parts and pieces that we no longer need is a really useful tool for our body. So hope you guys were able to get your notes filled in. You can feel free to pause or rewind if you need to, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day.